Good morning, everybody. It is Rollie. And so we are on Chatting with Wisdom. So obviously today's Wednesday. And so every Wednesday I jump on and share some experiences with some incredible women. And so today I have Heather Weddell. And so Heather is a certified educator and registered holistic nutritionist focusing on women's health and vitality. She's passionate about helping women to prioritize self-care and optimizing their health through hormone-balancing nutrition. She is the owner of Heather Weddell Nutrition and lives in Ottawa, Canada. Yay, Canada! With her loving spouse, Geoff, and her beautiful German Shepherd, Sofie. She has two amazing children who have grown up and flown the nest. She enjoys testing new recipes in her kitchen, traveling with Geoff, and long walks with Sofie. So welcome, Heather. Is there anything else about yourself that you want to share with our audience?
No, I think that's pretty good. More long walks with Sofie these days than traveling with Geoff, I have to say.
What, you're not catching a plane? What's wrong with you?
Just the way it is.
So it is, I love it when I connect with, like, not that I don't love connecting with people all over the world, but I love it when I get to connect with people who are in Ontario. So for those of you who don't know geographically where we are, I am in Northeastern Ontario in a very small community. And Heather is down in Ottawa in our beautiful province of Ontario. So it is, I love it when our Ontario women get to come together. So like I said, not that I don't love connecting with other people around the world, because I love it. I think that it's amazing, but it's like, oh, in my backyard, this is so awesome. My backyard to Heather is like 6-hour drive. But it's still my backyard. So this is still really cool. So welcome, Heather. And so with everything that has been going on, I think that nutrition and staying healthy is something that is really on the forefront of everybody's mind. I know that it is for me, because it's like I'm doing a lot more snacking than I normally do. I'm doing a lot more things that I wouldn't typically do. And my waist size has kind of went, what are you doing? Like, this is winter activity. We're like moving into summer, and like, what are you doing? And so I think that this is kind of a forefront conversation with people in terms of nutrition, but more specifically, what it is that you've chosen to talk about is healthy hormones, and that being the foundation of joy and vitality. And I think that hormones, but that's not my specialty. I think that hormones really impact how life affects us, like how the different things that are going on. And I know that for me personally, is that if I have to watch meat products that I'm eating because of the different hormones that are in there, because I'm a meat eater, and so like those kinds of things are things that impact my health, and I know that. So I have to watch if I'm eating out, or if I'm different things that I'm purchasing. So like, is that kind of where you're talking, like where some of the impact comes in?
Definitely that has an impact. But when I talk hormones, it's interesting when I say hormones, because everybody comes up with a little snippet, right, of what they know. And unless you're a total nutrition, biochemistry freak like I am, you don't know. I mean, the information is just not out there and everywhere, right? So yes, when I say hormones, I sometimes get that people think, oh yes, I've heard that there can be, hormones in the meat. There can be hormones in sometimes the dairy products that we consume, although Canada's pretty good about that. The other thing I get is people just think of estrogen or progesterone or testosterone. Those are sort of the three hormones people can name. And the truth is there are hundreds of hormones in your body. And it's an entire biochemical process going on in your body. And that process needs certain nutrients. So I approach it more from the nutrient aspect, right? So what nutrients does your body need to function properly, right? All those systems in your body that talk to each other and all those hormones that are going through sending chemical messages, right? That make other things happen. What nutrients are required to sort of keep that chain of communication flowing and working properly?
Nice. So yeah, definitely not something that I would have known, and but doing biochemical stuff is definitely not in my what's that word? Where it's like, oh, that's not my expertise is not the word that I'm looking for, but it's like that's not my interest. It's like, oh, chemistry? Really? I don't want to do chemistry. Just tell me what I need to do.
Yeah, chemistry has never been my thing either. But when you look at the biochemistry, right, how your body uses chemistry, and when you start to realize that everything that goes on in your body is a biochemical process, and all the systems that are linked together and how your body really works, it's absolutely amazing. Like, it is just miraculous. Our bodies are amazing things, and they do so much for us, and can do even more for us when we give our bodies what they need.
Nice. So what are some of the things that people, what are some of the common questions that people ask you about, like, okay, where do I start? What do I do? How, what are some of the questions that people typically start with?
Yeah, people usually, it's like most things, they don't come to you for help until they have a problem. So I get people that ask me about, depending on the age of the woman, right? Of course, I get a lot of women with hot flashes, right? Night sweats, hot flashes. That's a super common one. And everybody thinks, and I want to distinguish right now between common and normal. Women go through that transitional period in their life, right, at that age, and things start happening, right? They start gaining weight and they can't understand why. They start having hot flashes and night sweats, sleep disturbances, mood swings that they didn't have issues with before. And a lot of women, they don't like it. They're looking for a quick fix or sort of a Band-Aid to slap on top of it because they think it's normal. And right away, I want to distinguish that it's common, right? It does. It happens to a lot of women. But just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal. Normal being that's the way it's supposed to happen. It's actually not normal. It's super common, but that's mostly because of the lifestyles that we live, the stresses that most of us are under. It really messes up our hormones. So between nutrition and stress, those two factors right there have a huge impact on our hormones. So people ask me about hot flashes and that menopausal change, all that going on, and they're freaking out. That's a big thing. They usually come to me asking about those symptoms. Younger women will come to me asking about symptoms of PMS, for example, right? Or irregular periods, things like that.
So that's really interesting because I've never heard that, right? In terms of it being and it makes complete sense in terms of it being common, because it is something that we commonly know. So I don't have those hot flashes that people talk about. My mom talks about them all the time, and it's like, I don't get hot flashes, that kind of thing. And I'm like, touch wood, knock on wood, make sure that doesn't happen. But it's really neat to hear that it's like, that's not what it's supposed to be like. It's not what's supposed to happen. Our bodies are supposed to go through the transitions, but we're not supposed to have these side effects. And I think that kind of fits. I don't know if side effects is the right word, but that those symptoms is not something that we have to experience in order to be able to go through the different processes and different changes that our bodies naturally go through. Is that what I'm hearing?
Exactly. It's a natural process, and it's not meant to be excruciating.
Good to know. I wish I had known that when I was doing the PMS symptoms.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't have the hot flashes, but I had a lot of the PMS symptoms, and it's like, but I also know that my nutrition wasn't the best, and I also know that I wasn't getting the appropriate things into my body that I needed, that I tried to do now that, and I won't say that I 100% do now, but that I try to do now, that I try and incorporate those different things. So, so now you talked about the healthy hormones being the foundation of joy and vitality. So like, how does that work? Like, how does that connect?
Yeah, and this is what I love about holistic nutrition, right? It's not just food. It's not just weight loss, right? Which is a lot of what I get. People are like, "Oh, you're a nutritionist. I know how to eat and I don't need to lose weight." I'm like, "Oh, but there's so much more." It's really interesting. I took one of the additional courses that I took was on mood and anxiety disorders. We see a lot of anxiety disorders now. We see a lot of depression. And again, it's a biochemical process, right? We have all these neurotransmitters in our body that put out hormones, right? And those hormones like serotonin, right? All those feel-good hormones, right? Those require that biochemical process to work properly. So the biggest thing those require is amino acids. And amino acids we get from protein. So what we eat does affect our mood. So when we're talking about someone with anxiety, depression, just any sort of mood disorder, I'm not saying that nutrition is the only thing, but I'm saying it definitely needs to be part of the conversation and part of the plan for correcting that disorder, right? Of course, we need counseling, and you should be seeing a medical doctor when things get out of hand. But nutrition really needs to be part of that conversation and part of that plan, because it is amazing what can change by what we eat and lifestyle habits, right? So for me, I've had quite the journey myself, and this is how I ended up specializing in hormones, actually. As a holistic nutritionist, we sort of, when you do your training, you get the generalized training, right across the board, and you come out, you graduate, and you're ready to take on the world, and I can do everything for everybody. And you learn very quickly you're a human being, and you just can't do everything for everybody, and you do have to choose where to focus. And that's a tough choice because you want to help everybody. But I was having some issues myself, right? My periods were becoming irregular. I was having hot flashes. I was having mood swings. I was having bouts of mild depression. And because I was busy, I'm a busy mom and looking after kids, and I'd been through a really nasty divorce. So I'm just chugging along, right? And I do what I tell all my clients not to do. I just take those symptoms and I just brush them aside. You know what I mean? You get up in the morning, you feel kind of tired and groggy because you're not getting proper rest. You grab a cup of coffee and you go, because that's just what you have to do. And you just keep sweeping it under the carpet. Those symptoms, when you sweep them under the carpet, they don't go away. They kind of grow, right?
Yeah.
So the symptoms grew, and I was having more and more issues and more uncomfortable and not happy. So I started diving into more the hormone side of it. And it became my new passion because it made such a difference in my life, right? That I was able to sort of all of a sudden now I could wake up and feel well rested. I didn't feel like I was, stiff as a board when I was trying to get up. It was so bad. I got to the point where if I sat for 15, 20 minutes, when I went to get up, I was stiff head to toe. It was hard to get moving again, and in your early 40s, that should not be happening, right? So you're like, what's going on? So through, looking into the hormones and all the things, the systems that are connected, and getting my nutrition on track for that, really made a difference, right? What you eat can make a difference. There are triggers for everything.
And I think that some of those triggers, so what's good for one person isn't necessarily good for another person, I think is one of the other things that is really important for people to know, is that, because like I said, I'm a meat eater. And so making sure that I can still eat the things that I do, whereas other people are very much into eating more vegetarians type style or whatever. And so, and I think that makes a huge impact. I know that if I kind of steer away from eating that meat, then my iron levels start to drop. And like, there's a lot of other things that happen for me. So I know that I need to stay with some of the other things, but changing up some of the components that go with it for me. And I know that that makes a huge impact for me. And whereas other people, they can't do those higher protein kind of things because it impacts them in a different way. Because like you said, biochemically, the different things that we eat and different things that we do affect our body. And so there's, and so with all these diets that are out there that have, okay, well, you need to do only all of this, or you need to do only all of this, so that it's really important for you to be able to see how does it impact your body, your own self, so that you can actually kind of regulate things that way. So so like, am I wrong in that part, or is that kind of what, is that how it works?
That's it, exactly. And that's where the holistic nutrition part comes in as well, is that as a holistic nutritionist, I recognize that every person is a unique individual, right? Your lifestyle is different than everybody else I treat, right? What's causing you stress may not be a problem for somebody else. How well your digestive system functions is different from someone else's. What underlying conditions you might already have are going to be different from someone else's. All these things, every little thing affects something else in the body. So we really have to look at each client individually. Now, that being said, I do run group programs, but the idea of a group program is I have to take, you know, what it is we're trying to accomplish and sort of generalize it. So what are the things that generally work for everybody? I mean, there are good practices that just work for everybody, right? Like, you know, you should be getting the right amount of sleep every night, right? You should be eating fresh whole foods, right? Lots of fruits and vegetables. Water is important. Exercise is important. And again, though, what type of exercise you choose, what type of exercise works for you is your choice, but we should be doing, right? So my job is to sort of, in a group program, provide the generalized content, right? The just really good, healthy lifestyle practices that will bring you more energy, that will make you healthier, that will make you feel happier because you're healthier and have more energy. And then to work with individuals from there.
So, and it really does make that difference. I think when we actually look at it from that perspective of kind of taking things in smaller chunks and looking at those different aspects of things, because we often take, because like you said, people think, okay, well, I'm a nutritionist, and so I don't need to worry about my diet because I'm already following a diet. I'm already looking after, or I'm doing all these different things, is one of the things that you had said before. And so, but being able to look at like those little pieces of how those things go. And I'm a huge fan of groups. Groups are my definitely one of those things that I find a huge impact, because what I find is in the groups, and you probably find the same thing in your groups, is that, or the groups that you run, but also the ones that you participate in, is that you get different ideas from people that it's like, oh, maybe that will work for me. And then you can kind of, because I'm huge on take what you need and leave the rest. Right. And because it's like you get to take those little, so you've got like all these global things that are going on, and then you get to take like these little snippets of things of how to impact things. And so, like I said, in terms of hormones, when we first started, it's like my view of hormones was like, oh, okay, well, if I actually make sure that I don't eat a whole lot of meat that contains hormones, then I should be able to balance my hormones. And you're like, no, not necessarily, right? Yeah. So now it's like, oh, okay, now I'm gonna have to pay attention to like, what are some of those other snippets of things that I can actually incorporate to be able to help those kinds of things impact as well. So
it's like a puzzle, right? And you have to find the right pieces that fit into your puzzle to make it work properly and complete it. And I say to a lot of people, working with someone like me, a nutritionist, just takes a lot of stress and chaos and overwhelm off your plate, because we tend to just want to Google everything.
Yeah.
And when you Google something, how many different pieces of information do you get, right? And you're trying to put it all together. You sort of try this for a while, and then you go, oh, well, look at that. Maybe I should try that. No, look at this. This looks like a cool idea. And well, maybe I'll try that. And really, you're just spinning in circles, right? You're not really getting anywhere. And there's a lot of fads out there. There's a lot of trendy stuff. There's a lot of marketing. Marketing is not going to help you restore your health, right? Yeah. You need to work with someone. So I say, when somebody says, what's the biggest thing you do? The biggest thing I do is I take all of that information off of your plate, right? I sort it, right? I sort it for you and come back to you. And together I work with you to pull the exact 2 or 3 pieces of the puzzle that you're missing. Instead of you trying to look at 100 pieces of a puzzle to figure out what fits and what doesn't, and try this and try that. And then you're creating stress. And again, I'll go back to saying stress is one of the biggest hormone disruptors we have.
Yes. And stress is something, and I had a conversation, I can't remember which day that I had a live about it. And that was one of the things that I actually talked about, is like those different stresses are exactly that. Like, they are different. And so your stresses are different than my stresses. And Penny's watching and Dana's watching. And so like, you've got all these different stresses that are actually going on in our lives. Mm-hmm. And like, one of the things that you had said earlier was, something that stresses somebody else out doesn't necessarily stress the other person out. Or sometimes, especially with being in mental health, one of the things that I have found is that people have cumulatively collected that stress. Like, I'm strong, I can do all these different things, and all these different stressors have actually impacted me. And that all of a sudden, the people that come to see me are at this complete breaking point. Mm-hmm. But if we would have been able to catch these things at earlier stages, then we may not necessarily have got to that overload of things, because we've been able to, because like you said, stuff those things under the rug, right? So with our nutrition, with our stress, with our anxiety, it's just so much easier to just kind of brush those things off. So like, even right now, doing the 30-day self-care challenge, and it's not because I don't do self-care, because I do self-care, but I was doing little snippets of it, and life just got really crazy over these last 6 months. And it was like, oh, okay, I am not doing self-care like I normally do. So doing this self-care challenge is being able to remind me that I can take those little pieces and bring in those little those impacts, so that I can actually reduce that stress and reduce that anxiety and those different aspects that stress causes. So it would affect our nutrition and like all those different parts of ourselves.
Yeah. And stress actually affects how your digestive system works, right? So when you start affecting the digestive system, now you're affecting what nutrients you're absorbing from your foods. Yeah. I mean, and that's the whole point of eating, right? It's to nourish our body. So if you don't get the nutrients from your food, right, it can be a vicious circle. It really can. And just back to the stress and brushing things under the carpet, I can't stress enough how much people need to reach out for help. I think as women, we're really bad about doing that sometimes. We think we need to do it all. We're trying to juggle everything, right? We're looking after the kids. We're looking after the household. We're going out to work, just trying to handle everything ourselves. And I think we feel like maybe we look like we're weak when we ask for help, or when we say, no, I can't do that right now, right? We don't like to say no. And yet no is one of the most powerful words we have. And I've been guilty of it, right? And I have, I completely crashed, right? I'm coming back quite a ways back now from adrenal fatigue. And that's just because I was living with chronic stress for nearly a decade. So my body was running on adrenaline and cortisol, the 2 big stress hormones. Yeah. And when some of those life stressors eased up for me, the adrenaline and cortisol backed off, and I was left feeling pretty depleted.
Yeah.
So I had to do a lot of work with adrenal glands. Yeah.
And it's just so powerful when we can actually take a look at that and see how that actually impacts us, right? So we and one of the things that you said is that as women, we oftentimes don't ask for the help because we need to be strong, because that's what we've learned, right? So we've learned that we need to be strong. But yet, if we actually look back historically, women actually came together and supported each other, and they did all these different things together. They would bake together. They would look after the kids together. They did, like, so when they actually talk about it takes a community, or it takes a village to raise a family, is because they used to come together and do all these things. But then as society kind of took a back burner, then everybody just kind of started dispersing and doing their own things, as opposed to coming together and supporting each other. And so reaching out for help is huge. And it doesn't matter what that help looks like, right? So like, it doesn't matter if we're coming in specifically to deal with like you said, okay, I'm having hot flashes. And so it's like, okay, well, I'm reaching out for help to be able to do that. And so one of the things that I love about being able to connect with other holistic practitioners like you is being able to like take a look at that global picture. So somebody's come in and take a look at you, and you're like, okay, we can work on these little pieces. But go and talk to, like you said, go and talk to your physician to talk about this piece, and go and talk to someone else that can actually help you with these pieces. And I think that part is huge. And the community that I work with, one of the things is that we refer to each other, because it is so much helpful to be able to have like all these pockets together. So like, I have someone who I refer to for yoga, for example. It's like, hey, reach out to this person, because this person can actually help you with dealing with those kinds of things. I can help you with meditation, and I can help you with different things like that. But in terms of like being able to really tap into that, those yogic practices, like reach out to this person, or that nutrition, or those different things, those little parts. And if we can actually, as adults, as women, being able to be able to recognize some of these things that are going on, then we can actually teach our younger generations how to be able to make those changes beforehand, and how to reach out for help, and how to be able to change. And one of the things that I'm finding a lot more is that there's a lot more women that are in our age range that are reaching out for help, and they're doing all these different things, and that they're getting all these things. And oftentimes, so I have some younger people that are in our circle as well. And one of the things is that people that are in our age range goes, I really because we've got younger people that are there, that they look back at those people and say, wow, I really wish that I would have had those insights at your age, because but that wasn't the journey that we had to go through. And so I really truly believe our journeys are our journeys for a reason. But it's like if we actually had that hindsight, right? So that we can start earlier, we can start sooner, because our parents didn't teach us those things, right? So being able to teach our younger generations to be able to start earlier, I think is huge in terms of being able to see how that's going to impact us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
and the counseling piece is huge, and I want to say to everyone, like, just start somewhere in asking for help, whether you start with a counselor, whether you start by going to yoga, whether you start with massage therapy, whether you start with nutrition, start somewhere, because most of these wellness practitioners work within communities, right? And they know other wellness practitioners that can help with the other pieces of the puzzle, right? Start somewhere. Even wellness practitioners work with other wellness practitioners, right? I know all kinds of nutritionists, right? And I work with them because sometimes they have other areas of expertise that I don't, that can be helpful to a client of mine. It can be helpful to me. Right? You were talking about doing your 30-day challenge. I have a challenge starting on Monday. I'm not running it. I'm participating, right? But it's right back to the basics. But sometimes we need to go back to the basics because we forget.
And our lives get busy, right? So like I said, our lives get busy, and these different aspects affect our lives. And so being able to kind of take a step back, and like I said, so 30-day challenge of self-care. Like, I love self-care. Self-care is like my dream thing. But then when I take a step back and say, oh, with all the changes and everything that has been going on, because we started off with my my women's conference in from January till March. So like that just created a whole lot of crazy. And then everything else that has happened since then, it was kind of like when I took a step back going like, oh, okay, I'm not reading before bed anymore. I'm not doing like all these other little things that I would normally be doing, because by the time that I'm going to bed, I'm exhausted and but I'm not getting those restful sleep. I'm not eating properly. Like all these different aspects of the different things that are actually going on. So June for me is that rejuvenation and starting over, and it's okay for us to be able to start over, even with our nutrition. Yes. I think that that's really important for people to realize, is that even when we slip back, we can always come back again. Like that we're not stuck, right? So,
and let's face it, life gets in the way sometimes, right? So it's always, I always say it's always about balance, but every single day you have to find that balance, right? You have to work, because every day is a little bit different. Right. Yeah. I'm a creature of habit. I love routines. Right. And nothing drives me more crazy than when you throw me off my routine. So that's been an area of work for me, right? Because that's a source of stress for me. Yeah. Right. I have to chill back a bit and go, okay, it's all right. It all works out in the end, right? What are you stressing about, right? So I've learned to stop myself and look back and say, you know what, Heather, you've been off track before. You've been thrown off your routine before. Things don't always go the way you plan, yet somehow it all works out. It'll be okay.
Well, and I just think that that's so funny, because like now I actually understand Rollie, I still haven't received a message from your VA. Like, what's going on? I still haven't. And so it's like, I'm like, it's okay. We're just in transition. And so as much as I like to be able to have things organized and have things flow the way that they're supposed to, tech has not been my friend. And so things have not been flowing the way that it needs to. And so then when I get those messages, that part creates stress. And I'm like, it's okay. It's going to happen. It's going to be okay. But then being able to look at it from the other side of like, oh my God, these things are not happening. Am I still doing this? Is this still happening? I don't have any details, that kind of thing. So, and it's very stressful for people. And so being able to kind of take a look at like, what are those little pieces in our own lives, but being able to look at like, how is that impacting somebody else's life, I think is also really important, without dwelling or focusing on the other person. But like, how are those kinds of things happening? Is this being off the routine? So when you talk about like the creatures of habit, so I had two different kids. We always have different kids, but so I had two kids who were completely different. And that was one of the things, is that things that worked for my one son well, and everything was great. Whereas the other one, it was like, okay, I need to make sure that all these other things going. And so like even something as simple as meditation. So I had one son who struggled with sleep, and he still struggles with sleep. And so being able to wind his body down to be able to get to sleep. So we would actually play meditation music in their room. And in our home is like, nobody liked to sleep with their doors closed. We all like to have our doors open. And so we had, so we were actually doing different meditations and playing different music. And my one son, who doesn't need this stuff, and he just reads before bed and he's all good and everything's good. And then you've got this other one who we need to listen to meditation and find different meditations, and he would get bored with them. So we would come up with new ones. And so like all these different things, and even just in your own household, how these different things impact us and how these little things create a lot of stress. So like, with some new meditation that was going on, my one son after a week said, okay, I'm going crazy. This is enough. Right. So, and being able to like be mindful of that. So then we got some earbuds for my other son, so that we can like still trying to make sure that we could do it where he wasn't getting choked through the middle of the night. Right. Like all these different things of how can we help one over the other and have these little different impacts. And I think that nutrition fits that same way, from what it is that you were talking about, is like having these little snippets of things as to how we can actually impact our nutrition, so that we can make those little bit of changes that will actually change some of the things in our life.
Right. That's a big part of the way I approach working with a client, or whether it's a group program or you're working with me one-on-one. We do it one step at a time, because the last thing you want to do is overwhelm somebody, right? I mean, someone comes in and we talk about their symptoms, and that's how I work with a client, right? We always talk about symptoms, because symptoms are your body's messages to you as to what's going on and what's working, what's not working. I could give them a list of 30 things to do right off the bat, right? The wheels just start turning. But I have to pull back, and you have to ask questions, right? Where are they at now? And give options, right? So we could start with this, or we could start with that, right? What's going to work? So you have to do it one step at a time. You cannot, nobody can change everything at once. So we always have to start with where the client is at, and work with them to find out what's working for them. Give them one or two things to go and work on, and check back in a couple of weeks. How is that going? Okay, great. Let's add this one more thing on and see what happens then, right? Is that working? If it's not working, you always have to be willing to tweak the program, right?
Yeah.
Because what works for one person may not work for another one, right? So I could have taken a recommendation, I could have given it to 50 people and been successful, and number 51 comes along and it doesn't work. And it's not that it's a bad recommendation, it's just not the right puzzle piece for that person, right? We need a different piece to the puzzle, and that's my job, is to help people find the right pieces that fit their puzzle.
And that's so important, because like you said, when we first started, is that every person is unique, right? So everybody is completely different. There are all these different pieces of the puzzle. We've got different people who've had different experiences, different traumas, potentially different relationship issues, different job requirements or expectations, right? So you've got all these different things that are impacting all these different pieces. And so when we forget that we're human and that we have all these different experiences, that we forget how to be able to do that. And I think that we're all guilty of that, forgetting what it is that we need to do. Like, I know that for me is that I know all the things that I'm supposed to do, and I'm really great at walking clients through all the things that they need to do. And then when I kind of take a step back, when you were talking about like, oh, I'm like really stiff to get up in the morning, it's like, oh, what am I doing different? Oh yeah, I'm not walking. Oh yeah, I'm not I'm not doing all these different things. That it's like, okay, well, yeah, my body's saying like, hey. And we often forget that. So if we're driving a car and the red light comes on our dashboard, we immediately say, oh, I'm going to need to look into this and figure out why my engine light is coming on. But yet when we get those little signals that our body gives us, like those engine lights that our body gives us, we kind of go, oh, I'll just deal with it tomorrow. It's not a big deal. Like it'll go away, right? How does it go away if we don't change it?
And I don't think we ever believe it's going to go away. I think we hope it will, because I think we build things up in our mind, right? We think it's going to be some major ordeal, some big major change we're going to have to do, and it's going to be too difficult. It's going to be too challenging. And what really happens is it's never as bad as we thought it was going to be, right? I always use laundry as an example, because I'll build that up in my head, right? You're like, oh my gosh, the laundry, right? I mean, it's like the size of a mountain, the size of your house in your head, right? And it's this huge task. And yet when you actually just go, okay, I'm just going to get that done, you go down, you turn on the washing machine, put the clothes in, close the lid. You know, an hour or so later, you go down, you flip it into the dryer, and you turn the button on, and you take the stuff out, you fold it and put it away. You go, you know, it really wasn't that big of a job, right? In my mind, I'm taking on the world, right? In reality, it was a few minutes of my time, right? Was all that was required. And the same goes with our health and our well-being, right? I think we sometimes ignore symptoms that pop up, because in our mind, it seems like a big deal. And I think it's fear, right? And this is another reason I tell people, please stop Googling, because you can Google anything. And I'm telling you, every symptom you Google, it's going to tell you have cancer, right? Then we get scared, right? Right? It's frightening. So it's like, you know what? Symptoms are little messages from your body, and there's no one single cause for any symptom. Any symptom could be caused by, there's a whole list of causes for that symptom, right? And sometimes it's really, really simple. I've had clients come to me. I had one client come to me. She's a cancer survivor. And so fear is already there. She does not want to go through that again. And she had a pain in her abdomen and could not get rid of this pain. And she has seen all kinds of doctors, all kinds of specialists. She's been through all sorts of testing, can't get to the bottom of the pain. Nobody can make it go away from her, for her. And she was frightened, and she thought it was a big deal. Like, is it cancer coming back? Is it some other big thing? Maybe I need to have an operation, like all these big things. Do you know what we did? All we did was implement a couple of little strategies for her for her digestive system, right? Like drinking room temperature or warm water with lemon in it before she eats, right? Just changing a couple of little tweaks to her diet, because she already was eating really well. We made a couple little tweaks, a couple little suggestions for her digestive system. Within a week and a half, her pain was gone.
Wow.
But in her mind, right, because she's seeing all these doctors and specialists, in her mind, we're looking for some big major problem. Like, you know what? Your digestive system just needs a little bit of love and support here. It's looking for something. Let's give it this and let's give it that and let's take that load off, right? For you, Rollie, you say you eat meat, right? Some people, we have to take them off, right? Or we have to reduce the quantity.
Yeah.
Because it's too hard on the digestive system for them, right? Some people, it's just a matter of the combining of food, right? When they eat meat, they say, oh, when I eat meat, I feel bloated, I feel gassy, I feel like there's a rock in my stomach. I'm like, yeah, but what are you eating with your meat? Oh, potatoes. I'm like, worst combination ever for your digestive system. Do not eat a starchy anything with your meat, right? Meats and starches don't go together. Your digestive system does not like it, right? Go ahead, have your steak, right? Have a salad with your steak. Your digestive system loves that. Put potatoes on that, and what's happening is it's just all sitting in your gut, and your stomach cannot get through it and digest it fast enough, right? Yeah. And the other thing people don't do is chew their food, right? Chew your food, right? The smaller it is when it gets to your stomach, the better your digestion and the better you'll feel. So really, little things can make a big, big difference. Little things like chewing your food, a little bit of lemon water, right? Don't eat potatoes with your meat. Little things like that can make huge changes in people's health and how they feel. So it's not always a big deal.
Well, and like you said, like, I like how you gave that analogy of like those mountains, when really it's just like this little tiny molehill, right? So it's just this little anthill that is there. And if we can like plug away at how to be able to deal with that, then it makes life so much easier.
Yeah.
So, so I can't believe that we have like spoke for almost an hour. Like, this is incredible. you always know that those topics that are like really hot, and like, not that the shorter ones are not, it's but it's just, we can go through so many rabbit holes in terms of being able to connect with those hormones and the different things, because the topic, like you said, is so broad. So even just nutrition, like, it's just such a broad topic. And so when you actually get into like all these different impacts, or these different things that are actually going on. So so in the description has your links. But like, how do people get to work with you? So like, I think that part is really important for people to know, is how do they connect with you? What do they do? What's the process?
Right. So the link to my website is key. So if heatherweddellnutrition.com, from that website, you can book a free call with me, sort of a Q&A call, sort of ask me questions, what are you thinking about? What's on your mind about your health? And just take that mountain and get on the phone with me for 20 minutes, and maybe we can reduce it to an anthill, right? And just in 20 minutes, even if you just feel better about it, that's fantastic. So I always offer a free 20-minute call before I work with anybody one-on-one, because we want to make sure that I'm the right professional for you to work with, right? Maybe there's somebody else that you are better suited to that could do more for you. So we want to do that. There's also some great resources on that website for women, even men looking for hormone health, because men have hormones too that affect their health. There is a free guide on my website as well. It's a quick start guide to healthy hormones, and that's going to give you, remember we talked about starting with just those little steps and little things you can do? That guide is going to give you some of those little steps right off the bat. And the Healthy Hormones for Women program, I am actually changing into a membership site, because what I'm finding is there's a lot, and we pack it into a 9-week program, but people need more, right? Health is a lifelong process, right? So just try to cram.
Can we just snap our fingers?
9 weeks, you're done. No, you're not. So putting it into a program is going to allow me to work with more people at a much lower cost, right? Because, programs cost money, a few $100s to put out of your pocket. If I could transition that over to a membership where it's a small amount of money each month, and people can just be part of a community and get to work with me consistently month over month, it brings their costs down. I can help more people, and people are getting more support longer term, which is, I think, really the key to success, right? I'm sure, Rollie, you're the same as me, that you're always working on you. It's never done, right? You tweak your diet, or you tweak your lifestyle, and that's working along for a while, but then something changes, so you got to tweak it again, right? Yep. So yeah, we're shifting that over to a membership. The membership's not quite ready to go, but book a call with me. It's free. Grab one of those free guides that will put you on my mailing list, and you will be at the top of my list to know right when that membership is ready to go.
Nice. And so one of the things that you said that I just wanted to comment on is that you said like those lifestyle, like those parts of it. So like being, so in 20 years of working in mental health and addiction is like we get all these different things in line. And one of the things that I hear from people all the time is like, I thought I worked on this issue. Why is this issue coming back up? And it's like, okay, we need to work on this next level. So like, it's not that we didn't work on that issue, and the issue that we had with these, whatever it is that was going on, or whatever the circumstances that were going on, is coming back up again, because we need to take it to that next level. And nutrition fits that same category. Is we just need to take it to the next level of like, what is it that we need to do now? Right. So it's beautiful. So reach out to Heather. It was a great chatting with you, and I love being able to connect with like-minded women who have that holistic approach of like, it's not just one piece of the puzzle. There's so many pieces to that puzzle, and so reach out to Heather, and I will talk to you guys all next week. And because I have been working on a number of things, I normally jump on and I know who it is that I'm speaking to next week, and I have no idea. So I forgot to check the schedule, so I have no idea who I'm introducing next week. And so if somebody is watching and you want to actually share your own topic, so you don't have to be a professional to be able to share your topic. It's whatever your passion, whatever your topic is in, and the goal of it is, how can we help other women? Because that was one of the things that Heather was talking about, is that it is just so important for us to have that support with each other. And if you're thinking about a topic, or there's something that is kind of like pressing on your own mind, then chances are other people want to have that same conversation. And so reach out and join us in the conversations. And because I love being able to have these impactful conversations, and I know that they're impactful because I get that feedback from people. So people do give me that feedback and say, you know, I watched that one episode with Heather, and like I was able to get like this little piece of things, and like it changed my life. And so it's just really important for us to be able to support each other. And with Heather having talked about that community, is really important for us to be able to have that connection. So so thanks again, and thanks everybody for watching and joining in. We had a number of people that I said hey to today that have joined in the conversation. Sometimes we have conversations, sometimes people are a little are voyeurs and just kind of watch from the sidelines. But we've had lots of people in, and so if you're catching the replay, #replay, and if you have a question, Heather has access to this this conversation as well. And one of the things that I'm really excited about is that it went direct to YouTube today. So this is the first time, because normally we record it and it's all Facebook and then I upload to YouTube, but it went direct to YouTube today. So congratulations, Heather, it was a success. So thanks for being my first YouTube live guest, and so really looking forward to connecting with you again. And thanks everybody, and I will chat later.